now and forever. So this is terrific. We had a great crowd at the 8:30, and we've got a nice crowd here today, and we've got lots of kids, which we really love. And usually I make the youngest of our children the star, like you, Oliver, yeah, like the stars of the show, but and especially our unborn children, because we love them. I know we have a few unborn children there. Hi, little guys. There's some right there, and there was one over here, but there's things happening. So and the Ronings are here with their beautiful children. The Ronings do baptism at Mass, and that's something that we offer, but the Ronings are the only ones who really seem to take us up on that. So if that's something that you want, we certainly are open to that. The stars, in a way, today are the children's choir. The children's choir is in the house, and they have affectionately named this kind of Mass the Super Mario Mass, which we really love. We're really excited about the Super Mario Mass, so I'm happy to be here and celebrating that with you. Now, I am not a Minnesotan. I am not nice, but you are mostly Minnesotans, and you're really nice, and you're probably friendly with everyone. But you're not friends with everyone, right? You're not friends with everyone because friends need to spend time together, and you simply don't have the time to spend with everyone. But you do have the time to spend with at least a few friends, and I'm hoping that one of the friends you're spending time with every day is Jesus, because Jesus wants to spend time with you every day so that you are not just friendly with one another, but truly friends. Abraham, whom we heard about in the first reading from the book of Genesis, was and is a friend of Jesus. As I've said before, Jesus is God, and both the prophet Isaiah and St. James refer to Abraham in their inspired writings as the friend of God. So Jesus is a friend of Jesus. Abraham was a man of heroic faith, but he had limitations like we all do. And it's because of these limitations that when God broke into his life dramatically, I think he was 75 when, so you those of you who are advanced in years, don't give up. Abraham, I think when God spoke to him, was 75 years old. So when God broke into his life and invited Abraham to be his friend, he asked Abraham to leave behind many of his extended family members and friends and to relocate hundreds of miles away from his hometown. God asked this of Abraham, knowing that friendship with himself would be challenging. It would be demanding and time-consuming for a mere mortal like Abraham. And Abraham would be much more successful in this newfound relationship, this newfound friendship, if he was free from many of the distractions that occupied him in his hometown. And the most problematic of these, the distractions are one thing. The most problematic would have been the worship of false gods, right? This is before God had broken into Abraham's life. His friends would have had these little idol statue gods that were honored in their home. He himself may have had some in his home, and so God wanted to get him away from that, right? So, at the risk of being outrageously presumptuous, I can relate to Abraham's need to relocate to be a friend of Jesus. As a young man living in a college town in central Pennsylvania, when I felt Jesus calling me to greater friendship, the expectations of my college friends, which would have been a form of peer pressure, the expectations of those in my life at the time in that college town would have made it extremely difficult for me to accept the invitation that Jesus was offering me. It was only when I left those friends behind by moving to Minnesota that I experienced the freedom to invest deeply in my friendship with Jesus on a daily basis. And the most obvious manifestation of this was attending daily Mass. I think it's extremely unlikely that I would have been able to attend daily Mass in that college town setting where I had established so many bad habits already. Jesus called Peter, James, and John to leave behind their former ways of life as fishermen, as we know, and to become his close personal friend. And Jesus invites each and every one of us to friendship. And to those who already consider him a friend, Jesus invites us to even greater friendship, to be even his BFF. As you know, this will require spending time with Jesus. Chances are you've heard Father Erickson's invitation to accept his 30-minute prayer challenge this Lent, which amounts to setting aside 30 minutes each day for prayer, speaking to and listening to Jesus as a friend, the way that true friends do. I hope that you've accepted Father's challenge and have been successful. If this is the case for you, please keep it up. It will do wonders for your relationship with the Lord. I think the good news for us at this point in Lent is that believe that conventional wisdom has it that 21 days typically are required to establish a habit. So if you've been successful this far, keep going for, like 10 or whatever more days. You'll get this habit down. That's terrific. If you haven't yet been successful, you still have more than 21 days of Lent to establish this prayerful habit in your life, and your friendship with the Lord will certainly grow. I recognize, of course, that it's possible that you've tried this 30-minute challenge and have not been successful, or maybe even the idea of praying for 30 minutes is so daunting that you haven't even had the courage to try. And if that's the case, I'm hoping that you're not discouraged, that you'll consider at least trying. And I have some advice for those of us who may have found that too difficult. So if you find that praying for 30 minutes each day at this point is too difficult, I'd like to encourage you to spend 30 minutes on some combination of Catholic religious activities each day. For example, we'll break it up into two 15-minute segments, as Father had suggested. You might watch or listen to a religious video or podcast for 10 minutes, and then spend 5 minutes or so quietly speaking to Jesus about what you've learned in that podcast or video, speaking to Jesus about how this applies to your life, asking him to help you to apply that to your life. And then maybe 15 minutes later in the day, you'll spend 10 minutes reading from one of the Gospels or another book of Scripture, and then spend 5 minutes speaking with Jesus about how that Scripture passage applies to your life. I think at this point, the details of how you spend the 30 minutes are not so important, so long as you try to spend at least 30 minutes each day on some combination of Catholic religious activities. But then, too, I think essential to the process is do take some time to speak to the Lord about them, not simply consume them, but ask Jesus to help you to apply them to your lives. Like my preaching and so many books and they're all written for hundreds and thousands and even millions of people, and we need to find how they apply to my particular circumstances. You need to discover how they apply to your particular circumstances, and that requires reflection and integration and prayer. This will, of course, require that you leave at least 30 minutes of your old life behind. This is where it probably starts. This is where the rub is, right? You're not going to have 24 and a half hours in your day. You're going to continue to have 24 hours in your day. So you're probably going to have to leave behind 30 minutes of your old life behind. It probably is not God's plan for you to relocate your household as Abraham did, though I suspect that many of you would find it easier to spend 30 minutes with Jesus without a smartphone in your pocket. Ooh, ouch, Father, don't, no, not my smartphone, Father. I worship my smartphone. I think that if Abraham saw a smartphone, he would almost certainly jump to the conclusion that it is an idol of some sort. If he saw the way that people behave with and interact with them, he would almost certainly think it was an idol. So I urge you to prayerfully consider if that is making you a better person, a better Christian, a better husband, mother, father, wife. You may, and even if you can't do that, and there's, of course, reasons you might not, you may very well need to leave behind that cherished radio program, podcast, television show, streaming service, or social media platform for at least 30 minutes, right, to accomplish your goal of spending half an hour each day on Catholic religious activities and speaking with Jesus about them. Though we may have trouble doing this, Jesus is with us. He wants to help us to be his friend. He comes to us today in the Blessed Sacrament of the altar, offering us all the graces that we need. May we accept the help that he offers us in the Blessed Sacrament and become true friends of God, true friends of Jesus, like Abraham, Moses, Elijah, Peter, James, and John.